Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here.
I am Jason.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name is Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are The Real Movie Guys. Welcome to Real Terror Month, a series where we discuss the movies that will send chills down your spine. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Friday the 13th, Part 2. Mrs. Voorhees is dead, and Camp Crystal Lake is shut down, but a camp next to the infamous place is stalked by an unknown assailant. So, John, how does it feel to be jumping back into another slasher movie? This will be your second one in the series for you.
Feels good. Interesting.
Well, your boy made an appearance. You know, your biggest complaint, I think, last movie was, we had no Jason, right? So
That's right.
we got Jason now. How do you feel about that?
Jason didn't seem.
He looks
Jason
exactly
didn't
like
look.
he's supposed to, right?
Jason didn't look like what I thought Jason was looking like.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I was waiting for a hockey mask.
right. So big disparity here. Jason's in this movie. We finally get the Mr. Jason Voorhees, who we've all been waiting for. Looks a little different though, right? He's not that Jason yet. Instead of a hockey mask and his trash man outfit, that's what I'm gonna call it. I don't know what it is. That's what it is to me. He's got overalls. He's got a plaid shirt, and he's got a burlap sack with a hole in it.
Yeah, he looks like one of those. He looks like one of those guys that like chop down trees for a living.
Right. I'm gonna say it right off the bat. I like this look.
Oh.
Now, is it as iconic as the hockey mask look? No,
Never.
Absolutely not. But the reason I think this look works is it pays homage to a lot of the 70s horrors. There's actually a couple movies then that had a very similar looking killer in it. So I think that's what they were trying to go for with this look. I like it. I actually do. I think it's pretty creepy. There's a scene early on where you see Jason's like in the shadows. He just killed somebody, and you see him just like kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. He like just sits up, right?
Sandra.
That scene just freaked me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you. Something was just very uncomfortable. I don't know. I guess it was the combination of the lighting and just the lack of just the atmosphere. But that look's got something to it. I think it does genuinely. It does have some terror behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, going into that now, do you think anything's improved since the last movie?
I think we spend more time with like the whole cast of characters, and I feel like there's more in this movie than there were in the last one.
Okay, let's settle down. It's great to have you all here at our new counselor training center.
There is.
Per se?
There's more camp counselors, I would say. I would argue a lot of it remains unchanged for me. I think some of the issues I had last time still stand here, especially the kills aren't as inventive as they could be at this point. The pacing is just all over the place. I think it's a little better. Maybe it's a little more engaging. I don't know if I would say I think these kids were a little more likable than the last ones.
Having trouble? You gotta treat them gentle. Just like kids. Use a little of that child psychology you're majoring in.
I don't know if you felt like a little bit, maybe. I don't know if that's what it was. I would say maybe a little bit.
They're still terrible actresses and
Well,
actors.
no, they're terrible actors. I'm saying if they're likable. It doesn't matter if they're good actors. They're never going to be good actors. I told you to get over this. Get over it.
I didn't like them.
No, but
I'm
they're a little more likable.
I'm happy when Jason kills them.
Yeah. Well, they see you're starting to learn. You're starting to learn the ways of the slasher. Again, I would argue they're a little more likable in this movie. What the big thing this movie does is it introduces Jason. Like we said earlier, we get a whole backstory. We get a whole special scene, which I think is really funny because they just literally jump into it. I think they're having like a campfire meeting, right, in the movie, and literally the head counselor just starts talking about Jason out of nowhere.
But I'm gonna give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned. And if you listen to the old timers in town, they'll tell you he's still out there. Some sort of demented creature. Surviving in the wilderness. Full grown by now.
Like, oh, did you know there's a man in the woods? He saw his mom get murdered.
Legend has it that Jason saw his mother beheaded that night, and he took his revenge. A revenge that he'll continue to seek if anyone ever enters his wilderness again.
What? What kind of correction was that? Like,
And then the guy jumps out, scares
but
everybody.
not even that. Like, they totally, like, auto-corrected course here, right? Like, before, Jason was definitely 100%... I thought he was dead, minus how you felt about the end, but now suddenly Jason, like, watched his mother get murdered, and now he's out for revenge.
Now Jason's pissed.
Yeah, so there's a lot of logic issues with that. My big thing, though, is, like I said, they kind of... There's a lot of issues going from this movie. This movie was made very quickly after the last one. It has a different director. The same director didn't stick around. So you do see some changes. A lot of it had to do with the director was the previous director. He was upset that they introduced Jason, especially because before they said he was dead, right? They said clearly he was dead, you know. So now you're just utterly changing the lore behind it, making him, oh, he lived. He just watched his mother get murdered. You know, again, I said before that, you know, the logic thing is hit or miss in horror movies. This is one thing where I feel like it's kind of a miss. So there's a 5-year gap between this movie and the last movie. It's 5 years. The Jason we saw jump out of the water, if we're to assume that's the same Jason, there's no way they're the same person. This one's clearly, like, a lot older than that one would have been at this point, which I think is a problem. And not even that, no one saw him hanging in the woods for, like, 30-something years total.
Nobody goes over there.
And I complimented the series previously on the fact that, you know, I thought the whole camp was well set up. You know, I had a good sense of space. I knew where everything was. Based on the way this movie's filmed and shot, I felt like Jason was, like, literally, like, 10 footsteps away. Like, his house was, like, right there.
It felt like the houses were so close to each other, like,
Yeah, the
you could throw a stone out the window and stuff.
Yeah.
Which made it seem, even if they're, like, actually close together,
Mm-hmm.
There's ways that you can film it to make it seem like it's so much longer, and I feel like they didn't do that.
Yeah, no, I can agree. But, again, overall, at this point, we can consider, you know, this is the kickoff now of Jason. We said it was the kickoff of the series before, but this is now the kickoff of the Jason character. This is his official mythology. I believe they do play with it here and there, but essentially this is his origin.
Well, see, here's my other weird, like, almost issue with this.
Right.
Is I really wish that the first one and the second one were combined.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a longer movie, per se.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be so much better, though. Because I feel like these two movies together
Right.
would make a really good movie.
Yeah, it is a good story
Instead
together.
of just being...
Yeah.
I understand it would take away some things and other things would have to be
Right.
different, but I feel like these two movies combined would make it feel like more of a complete story
arc. Right. Well, I guess it does live up to the name Part 2. So it is Part 2 of that story, which is good. That it's a positive too. It feels like a genuine continuation of the series. Granted, you switched directors, and I believe they changed writers as well. But again, it does feel like a direct continuation. A lot of things return. Like I said in this movie, we have the return of the first-person perspective, which again, totally love that. This movie has a lot of creepier scenes, I think, than the first movie. In some ways, I think it's far superior as a horror movie, especially with like I said, that one scene with Jason like lurking in the dark, and then there's the other one where Paul and Ginny are in a room, and Jason's like lurking. She's looking around Ginny, and she doesn't see anybody, and then suddenly you see Jason like pop up with like a poker or like a spear.
Paul, there's someone in this room. Paul, there's someone in this fucking room!
And she's like, "Oh my God, watch out!" It's like, holy shit, this guy just jumped out here and like just tackled him to the floor. In some ways, I think it's far superior. There's genuinely a lot more creep scenes.
Paul, answer me!
If you will. He lives up to the slasher motif a little bit better, especially because they're not afraid to really show Jason as much in this movie. He is limited, but at the same time, I feel like we get to see more of him as far as the character. And maybe he's a little bit more believable. Not to say that a woman can't be scary or can't be, the slasher icon, but a menacing man like Jason, I feel like he's a little more menacing than his mama.
Yeah. Well, one thing too, like I've noticed about like just watching these movies and other certain slasher movies,
Mm-hmm.
they always try to get like the guys more into it by having like sexualizing women and stuff in these movies.
Right. Well, that's another convention of horror is nudity. So get used to the weird inconsistency. But it is what it is. Again, that's another part of the genre that has that is largely contributed to horror. I have no issues with it. I've said we've reviewed Piranha, which is our #1 video, by the way. Please check it out. And Piranha 3D, it was a little over the top. It's in this movie. It's not as bad as I thought it could be, as I remember it being. Maybe it's a little more tamer in the 80s. They were gonna go all out, but there's still some nudity. Now, what else did you like about this movie, John? Now you've seen an evolution as a bit from the last one. What are some other highlights for you for this movie?
I actually thought some of the kill scenes were a lot better in this one.
Okay.
I felt like they were more like different than the other ones, like not the same old stuff. It was kind of like they threw in some of the same old stuff, but then other things were different. Like how there you got that one scene where the guy's hanging from the tree,
Right.
where he got caught up and she
Mhm.
went to go find something to cut him down with, and then Jason slashes his throat.
Where is she?
Right.
And he's kind of still just hanging there. I mean, obviously it's not real because like there's no blood like rushing down or anything.
Right.
But like him just hanging there and then her coming to find him, I thought that was a pretty cool kill.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the blood. This movie, it was under attack, this movie, when it came out. The last one was pretty gory for its time, Friday the 13th. So when part 2 came out, they were told, you gotta calm it down. You can't be having all that blood. So if you notice, there's really an extreme lack of blood in this movie, especially for some of the kills where you'd expect there to be more, or some gushing blood scenes. There really isn't. Most famously is the spear scene, where the two kids they have sex and they're laying on top of each other, and then Jason comes up behind them and stabs a pole, like a spear, or I think it's a spear. He just stabs it right through both of them, and you just see it go right into the floor. They had to edit that scene. They couldn't actually show that scene in the movie because it would have gotten an NC-17 rating.
That's
but
what I
there
heard
is an
too.
image of it. You can actually find the image online. They do have it. I always thought that was interesting, though. But yeah, I think the lack of blood, it doesn't hurt the movie, but it's noticeable.
Even in the first part one, I didn't feel like there was that much blood where it was like
But you
would
had
be
what you
considered
needed.
excessive.
But
yeah.
but remember, this is this different time. Now it's like, they got a paper cut. That's essentially how much blood they're showing. But now, it's a little bit different. Other things I like, Jason is an interesting character, right? You want to hate him, but like his mother, he is a somewhat sympathetic villain in a strange way. You kind of feel for the guy. As he watched his mother get murdered by camp counselors. So now he's kind of, he's all on his own. He is special needs, unfortunately. Take that for what you will. That's a whole nother conversation I'm not ready to have on this channel. But, you do feel bad for him. He's a child and a man. I think Ginny says it best when they're in the bar scene. She says he's probably like a child in a man's body.
I mean, what would it be like today? Some kind of out-of-control psychopath? A frightened retard? A child trapped in a man's body?
Essentially, he doesn't know any better.
The only person that ever knew him was his mother. He never went to school, so he never had any friends. I mean, she was everything to him.
So this is all he knows to do. So in some ways, especially when Ginny wears, which I think is extremely clever, by the way, she throws on the sweater of Jason's mother, which is totally creepy, that he's saving her head in her sweater. But she throws that on and imitates his mother.
You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased. That's a good boy. Now come to Mommy. Come on.
And you feel bad for the guy a little. I do. I kind of sympathize for him. He doesn't know any better, and I thought that was a cool mythology addition too, where he saves this. That comes up down the road. It is brought up. He saves the severed head of his mother, and he has the sweater and everything like that. I just thought that was a very interesting layer to the mythology, and it was a clever use at the end scene too. I thought that was pretty cool. It just adds another layer to Jason. Don't worry, he's not going to have many layers very long. That's probably the last bit of humanity this character's going to have in any sense of the word. Also, this movie, like I said, a lot of things do return. We also have the return of the jump scare, the ending jump scare where he jumps through the window and grabs her.
Give your mom this.
He grabs Ginny. It did happen this time. Like I said, the last movie, it's not clear if it happened, the boat scene. It's more than likely a dream sequence. No, this time he did it, right? He jumped through the window and he grabbed her. Did that take you by surprise?
Yeah, actually, I did.
This one did. So the first one didn't, but this one did. This one got you a little more. Yeah, I think this movie, in a lot of ways, it just feels more of the same, which isn't a bad thing. It sounds like I'm kind of knocking on it, but essentially it's more of the same. They bring, there's also interesting things that happened, right? So Betsy Palmer is brought back in this movie as a flashback scene when Ginny's imitating her.
Jason, Mother is talking to you.
Betsy Palmer doesn't like this movie. She's famously known for disliking it and actually not even remembering she was in it for whatever reason. She actually forgot she was in this. She forgot she was in this movie, which is kind of strange in hindsight. I think she was on the set for like a half a day, if that, and she did her lines and that was it. And then also, Adrienne King returns as Alice to get killed off in the beginning of the movie. Jason goes back for that revenge against the woman that killed his mother. Interestingly enough, she didn't want to be in this movie. She had some issues with a stalker at the time after being in the first Friday the 13th. So after this, she didn't really act anymore. Like this was kind of her sign off from acting. And she went into some voice acting, but I don't believe anything too notable. But again, a little interesting trivia there. Also the ice pick scene, which I do like that kill. I thought that was kind of cool where Jason stabs her in the head with an ice pick. Apparently they forgot to check to make sure that was a prop ice pick before using it. So she did actually get stabbed in the head. So that kind of sucks for her. I don't think I would have enjoyed that. There are some negatives, right? Yeah. A big thing, and this movie gets a lot of flack. If you look online or if you've ever had discussions with people, there's something about Jason that's not right. And he's a little short. And it's hard to tell at times. He's my height. He's 6'1", so that's not necessarily short. But when you're thinking of a looming monster, you tend to think like a 7-foot gigantic. Oh my God, what the hell is this? No, he's about 6'1".
Monster looking dude.
He's 6'1", and Jason's kind of clumsy.
Yeah.
He trips, he falls. He's very clumsy. Even the stuntman that played Jason got injured a lot in this movie. He fell on his axe and hurt himself. I think he broke a couple ribs. He actually got cut by the machete that Ginny swung at him. He actually cut his finger and had to go to the hospital.
Oh my God.
So we have Clumsy Jason in this movie. He's not really that intimidating at times. It's kind of silly just watching him roll around on the ground. And he just trips and falls. He actually hurt himself during the famous glass jump scene because it didn't break the first couple times he did it.
Talk about low budget films.
Yeah, it's kind of silly. Again, it's behind the scenes, but it adds to the whole mythology behind the series, which I think is interesting. Overall, though, I feel like a lot of the things I didn't like just kind of hung around. Again, the plotting. This one was a little better. I think there was a little more interest because we didn't know what was going on with the Jason character. So there was a little more. We had a predisposed idea that he was dead, but now he's back, and there was a little more intrigue, so maybe that made the plot a little more interesting in that regard. But overall, I would say the last 20 minutes, once again, is kind of where all the action happens for this movie. You did say you liked the deaths. I do think the deaths are maybe we're getting there, but we're not there yet. They're still unoriginal in a lot of ways. They could have been a lot better. Less blood, which I brought up before. In a horror movie, especially a slasher, I kind of want my blood in it. That's what I'm looking for. The end is just kind of jumbled for me. I don't know if you felt like it was for you. Just like, she quote unquote kills Jason. And they return to the cabin, then he jumps through the window, then she's getting loaded into a hospital, and we don't know what happened to Paul, and we just have the weird zooming out headshot for the movie. Just feels kind of jumbled to me, like they didn't know how to end the movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. I felt like they were trying to leave it open more.
Yeah, and there's a funny scene, apparently, and you can kind of tell. So the head that's on the table at the end of the movie of Mrs. Voorhees is actually a person's head through a table in makeup. The head was supposed to eyes open and smile to hint that he's getting orders from his mother or whatever, but they cut it out last minute, so you just have that fade out with the head not doing anything. They felt it was too cheesy, which I do agree. If that head opened its eyes and smiled, I'd have been like, get the hell out of here. Would you have liked that?
I mean, not necessarily.
Right.
But I mean, I think it would have been...
You think it would have added something?
I would think it would have added a little something of
Mm-hmm.
into the more movies and stuff. You could have made it a bigger thing then.
Well, we'll see what happens. We still got a lot of movies to go through. So, due to the nature of the season, myself and John will now select a recipient of the Real Kill Award. A special award given to the kill we think is the highlight of the film. John, who would you like to award for this movie?
Well, like we discussed earlier in this podcast, I feel like the sex scene where they get impaled, Jason impales them.
Now, do you wish we got the full scene?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
But I feel like that scene in general, was just an interesting way to have people die, like a horror situation.
Okay.
Of how they're always trying to sell nudity and sex and stuff, and have these people just die that way.
Yeah,
I thought
this is part of it. This is part of it. We lean into the rules of Friday the 13th, where if you're not a virgin, or if you're having sex, thinking about sex, you're dead. I don't know what Jason has against those people, but
I don't think Jason never got any.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in a sec. But I would like to award the Real Kill Award. I'm gonna give it to Mark, my wheelchair friend. This is wrong for all kinds of reasons, right? This scene's important too in a weird way. This is the first time Jason kills someone with his famous machete. This is the first kill he offers. He throws a machete into Mark's face, and Mark's in his wheelchair. It's raining. He hits him in the face, and then Mark just flings his hand, and he just rolls down the back of the steps. And it's just so awkwardly funny. I had to nominate it for the kill. I thought it was silly. It was over the top. And
well, also with Mark too, I thought Mark was going to be one of the first people to die.
Ouch.
Because it seems like in a lot of these movies where they'll have either that girl who's not a very strong-willed character or anything like that. They have her die, or a man in a wheelchair seems to go first. Just somebody who's has a disadvantage.
Well, it's interesting. Do you know what the term is for a woman that survives in a horror movie? Do you know what it's called?
No.
There's actually a film term. It's called the final girl. It's used in horror. It's usually the final girl, and sometimes there's a final guy. It's usually a final girl where it's just one female survives, the whole encounter. Ginny's an interesting one because I don't know why she survived. It felt kind of strange that she survived at all because Jason jumped through the window and grabbed her. We don't know what happened to Paul. It's never actually stated if Paul died or not. If you're going by the extended cut, I guess you can assume Mrs. Voorhees smiling is Paul's dead. But, you know, I don't really know. But, again, Ginny being alive kind of rubbed me the wrong way, too, a little bit. But that is part of the genre, you'll see. And many more to come. There is always usually a final girl, sometimes a final guy, but usually there's always a final girl.
I don't remember whatever happened to the other guy they went to the bar with who they left him there.
Interesting you bring him up. He lives.
Oh.
He's, ironically, but they go out with one of the guys and they go to the bar and he's like, okay, I'm going to go party. I'm going to go get drunk and hang out with these people. I'll see you later. Bye.
When this place closes, you come straight back to camp, you got it?
Yes, Bob.
Oh, and let Maggie drive the pickup.
Yes, Bob.
He's the only one that survives. Realistically.
Yeah, like, he did the smart thing.
He did the thing that usually gets you killed in horror movies, and it helped him live.
That's right.
So I think that's a pretty big moment for this movie, for this series. So if you want to live in a horror movie, go get drunk and have lots of sex, but just don't do it where you're staying. Go somewhere else. I would like to give a secondary award to Jason himself. To Jason's testicles. Ginny kicks Jason in the nuts pretty friggin' hard, and he falls over. I thought he was down for the count at that point. I've never seen a monster of a man, supposed to be a monster of a man, fall like that and just writhe with pain. If he didn't have a problem with sex earlier, he definitely has one now because I don't think he can do it anymore after that kick. He was down. All right, I think we're at that point where we're going to give our final scores for the movie. I'm going to give Friday the 13th Part 2 a B-.
It's Camp Blood. This place is on the same lake as we're going to be. Camp Blood?
Hey, isn't that
Let's get out of here. We're going to be late.
Can't we take a look?
No way. What's the problem? If you want to hear about it, man, believe me. Not before lunch.
Continuing the tradition. In a lot of ways, I think, like I said, a lot of it has to do with, I think the movie just kept going, right? The series just stayed the same pace for me. It didn't diminish in quality. It didn't overly improve in quality in any significant way. I do think a B- is fair. Again, we get Jason now, so that's a huge plus. We get this iconic, the origin story, the Batman Begins of Jason Voorhees, if you will. So we get to see what happens from there. Again, good movie. I think, like you said, I think it really feels like part 1 and 2 are strongly connected, and that's one of the greatest positives I can say about this series is that it continues strong. John, where do you stand with this film?
I give this one a C+ too.
You're not even going to reprimand him? No punishment? What kind of place is this?
Ginny,
Yes, Paul.
no seconds on dessert for Jeff and Sandra tonight.
Like you were saying too, though, if you combine these both, I feel like it would get a B.
Right.
Like both of them combined, but
Okay.
I don't know. They just don't offer as much as I would have hoped from these movies. But not saying that they're bad movies or anything, but they're like combined, they're really good, and separate, they're kind of like so-so.
Right. Well, don't worry. We got a lot more on the horizon. Hopefully your opinion will continue to evolve as we go on. But John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us on YouTube. The Real Movie Guys on YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel, like our videos, hit the notification bell. You can find out when we put out more videos. We're going to be doing a lot this month of October. It's our Halloween edition and horror month, really, for everybody. You can also find us, tweet at us on Twitter. We're at The Real Movie Guy on Twitter. You can also find us on many podcasting platforms such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast format on iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places, and if you already are right now, hey, we greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. This guy over here, he's John. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. And don't worry, there are more scares to come as Real Terror Month continues. We will scare you next time.
See ya!